And we are on with six-time Emmy-winning CBS Sunday Morning correspondent, journalist, and media personality, David Pogue. David, how are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. You've been covering AI and tech for years, but the beginning of 2023 brought us an AI boom that took a majority of the country by surprise. What was your experience like as you covered such a turbulent time in the tech world?
I can think of only a couple times when I've ever had this feeling where the pit of my stomach dropped out and my brain expanded. One was the first time I saw the internet, like the first time I was on the web and could see the potential in the future. And once was when I first saw the iPhone. This, I think, is bigger. I mean, we're talking about DALL-E, where you can type in, anything you want a picture of in any style. A walrus doing a hula skirt dance in Times Square in the style of Picasso. I mean, and it generates it for you. And then, of course, ChatGPT, which does the same thing with writing. Write me a college essay about being a Scrabble champion. Write me an apology letter for being late to my date. I mean, anything you want. Write me song lyrics about being a longshoreman. And they're saying it's the end of teaching writing. It's the end of the college essays. It's the end of homework. I mean, it is so gigantic.
That's unbelievable to think that it's a shift massive akin to the internet or the iPhone, but I feel like a lot of people are going to see that more as it progresses and gets more and more advanced. But speaking of like how it advances, at the end of March 2023, major tech figures like Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak and more signed an open letter calling for the halt of AI development, and they cited profound risks to society and humanity. Now, in your opinion, are their fears legitimate or are they overblown?
On one hand, I've always been sort of the techno-optimist. I mean, for decades, I've felt that people's reaction to new technologies is based on fear of the unknown. And people tend not to take into account regulation and guardrails and society getting used to things. I mean, I have actually put together a new talk about the AI that's just come along and what it will do for us and against us. And part of the points that I'm making in this talk is that every new technology has freaked out the public and made us think it's the end of society. I mean, radio did that, television did that, reading did that. Plato said that the invention of the written word was a terrible mistake because we wouldn't be able to remember things anymore. Everything would have to be written down. Every new technological development has caused panic. That said, this one feels different. This one is not, we're replacing buggy drivers with automobiles. This one is, we're replacing everybody in every job all at once. When I lie awake worrying about this stuff, I tend to soothe myself with what I call the calculator analogy. I'm old enough to remember when the calculator was invented, and parents and PTAs said exactly the same thing. Kids won't know how to do long math anymore. Kids will not realize how to do complex equations. And today it's like, yeah, they don't. So, hey Siri, what's 15% of 80? We do adapt to things in society. We do get used to things in culture. And in this point with the AI stuff, we don't yet know what the government's going to do. We don't yet know how much it's going to cost. We don't yet know how good these things are going to get. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. So before we panic, we need to sort of see how things pan out. But I do believe in proceeding cautiously.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you bring up the government and how they may or may not regulate it, because AI is advancing at such a fast rate that, how do you make laws for something that might be completely different a month from now?
Yeah, it is changing so fast. I mean, I've given my AI talk 3 times so far, and each time I've had to stay up the night before updating the damn thing. Because when we started out, we were talking about AI that generates still photos and AI that generates written pieces. But since then, we have AI that generates music. We have AI that generates duplicates of the human voice, of individual people's voices. We have AI that generates video.
This will be the last question that I ask you about AI, but a very common mantra that I've seen over and over again is your job won't be taken by AI. Your job will be taken by someone who knows how to utilize AI. How much truth do you think there is in that statement?
A lot. I mean, with this ChatGPT stuff, the AI writing tools, lawyers are in the crosshairs of that one. What lawyers do is research and summarizing and writing and contracts, and those happen to be perfect uses for ChatGPT to take over. So as one of the experts I interviewed said, this isn't about AI replacing lawyers. This is about lawyers who use AI replacing lawyers who don't. The one saving grace is that many experts think that the ultimate will be people working with AI. That's the ultimate team. We can do better than AI by itself. AI can do better than we can by ourselves. But together, that's better than any combination.
Your career centers around a variety of topics, and you've written about climate change, technology, finance, and a million more other things. How do you personally decide which topics are worthy of a David Pogue deep dive, and how do you plan your content around them?
I think, well, first of all, I'm lucky enough to be a correspondent for CBS Sunday Morning, which is a show where we can pitch our own story ideas and write our own scripts. It is the most creative, the most glorious luxury as a journalist, television journalist. I started out as a magician. When I was a kid, I did 400 magic shows for birthday parties during my teen years. And I think it's instilled in me this desperate need to know how things work. How is it done? And I have that same itchy curiosity over everything. How does your job work? How does this government office work? How does this vaccine work? I just need to know. And so I think the one through line of my career through books and TV and radio and podcasts and everything else is just storytelling and being an explainer. So I look for things that have a great story, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and things that could use a decent explainer.
Last question I have for you, and if we could do a little deeper dive into your climate change work. The modern and progressive climate change debate seems to be pitting the actions of individuals against the actions of corporations. Some people say that their carbon footprint doesn't matter when major gas and oil companies pollute infinitely more than they ever will. Now, in your opinion, as someone who covers climate change very often, is this a constructive viewpoint in climate discourse?
It is to a certain extent true. I mean, the biggest polluters are governments, industries, companies. They pump out more greenhouse gases than you and your family will in a lifetime, for sure. But that doesn't mean that you need to abandon your own little tiny gestures for two reasons. One really big one is the social norms effect or social contagion effect. They've shown that when a neighborhood starts to put solar panels on their roofs, the number of other homes that put on solar panels skyrockets. In other words, people drive by, they say, solar panels, maybe I should do that. So it's the same thing when you take public transportation, when you eat less red meat. As one of my experts put it, if 4 of us go out to lunch and 3 people order the chef's salad, am I going to order the slab of steak? There's a social norms effect. Like I would feel weird doing that. What you see people doing affects how you approach things. And so that's a really important thing. The more people start lowering their emissions footprint, the more other people take that cue. And the second reason to do it is there is such a thing as eco-melancholia or environmental despair. And a lot of people suffer from it. It's this feeling that we're ruining the world and that our kids and our grandkids won't enjoy the weather, the seasons, the beautiful earth that we've had. And the way you fight depression is through action. Depression is not, oh, my life is terrible. Depression is, my life is terrible and I'm helpless to do anything about it. So whenever there are things you can do about it, steps you can take, changes you can make in your lifestyle, politicians you can campaign for, group therapy that you can join, any step that you take makes you sleep better at night. So there are 2 solid reasons that you should take every step you can to lower your carbon footprint.
David, before we conclude here today, I know that you had briefly mentioned your new AI series. Is there anything else you'd like to share about that with the audience before we conclude?
Yeah, I mean, your very first question was, how did I react to these AI developments? The first thing I did was start researching it. I did this series of stories for CBS Sunday Morning. And then the other thing I did is start putting together this talk because it's the intersection of my entire career. I'm a tech guy and I'm an explainer. And I'm also someone who does public speaking. So I think this AI talk is the best one I've ever done. I got to tell you, it leaves audiences terrified and exhilarated, which is exactly the right reaction we should be having.
Excellent. David, thank you so much for your time here today. I can't tell you how much I appreciated this conversation.
Thanks a lot.
All right, take care, everybody.